The ecosystem effect, how Black women entrepreneurs are rewriting success. Good morning, everyone. It's truly an honor to stand before you today. I want to begin by acknowledging the extraordinary woman whose insights form the foundation of this talk. Shansonique Williams is not just a visionary researcher and business strategist. She is a force of nature who has dedicated her life to dismantling the barriers that have historically limited Black women entrepreneurs. Through her groundbreaking work, she has illuminated pathways that were once hidden, challenged systems that were designed to exclude, and created spaces where brilliance can flourish unhindered. Her research doesn't just document reality, it transforms it. And today I'm privileged to share some of her most powerful discoveries with you. We've all heard the conventional narrative about Black women in business. It's a story that's been told and retold until it feels like gospel truth. A story of barriers, obstacles, and underrepresentation. A narrative focused on what's missing, what's lacking, what's broken. But what if I told you that narrative isn't just incomplete, it's fundamentally misleading? What if the story we've been telling ourselves about Black women entrepreneurs has blinded us to a revolution happening right before our eyes? Here's the truth that Shansonique Williams revealed through her extensive research. The real story of Black women entrepreneurs today is one of exponential growth, remarkable resilience, and transformative leadership that is quietly reshaping American business from the ground up. In recent years, Black women owned businesses have seen average revenues increase by 32.7%, outpacing other demographics by significant margins. This isn't just progress, it's a seismic shift that challenges everything we thought we knew about who succeeds in business and how. But why don't we hear more about this success? Why does the narrative remain stuck on struggle rather than triumph? Perhaps it's because we've been asking the wrong questions. We've been looking at individual success stories in isolation rather than understanding the powerful ecosystem that's being built. And that's what I want to explore with you today. How Black women entrepreneurs are creating a new model of success that challenges everything we thought we knew about business growth. Let me share something profound that Chansonique emphasized during our conversations. She said, the rise of Black women entrepreneurs isn't just about individual achievement. It's about building interconnected networks where mentorship, capital access, and shared knowledge create ripple effects across communities. This is the first key insight. Collective empowerment is replacing the myth of the solo entrepreneur. Think about how we typically frame entrepreneurial success. We love the story of the lone visionary working against all odds, defying expectations to build something from nothing. It's a compelling narrative, but it's also dangerously incomplete. What Chansonique's research shows is that the most successful Black women entrepreneurs aren't succeeding despite their communities, they're succeeding because of them. Let me take you to New Orleans in 2025 to the Women's Business Enterprise National Council Conference. This wasn't just another networking event with business cards exchanged over lukewarm coffee. This was a deliberate ecosystem building effort where Black women business owners showcased remarkable growth despite facing persistent funding disparities. Only a 45% loan approval rate compared to 55% for men. Instead of focusing solely on individual wins, these entrepreneurs prioritize systemic change. They created mentorship programs that paired seasoned business owners with newcomers. They built infrastructure for easier access to capital including innovative community lending circles. They empowered next generation leaders through shadowing programs and apprenticeships. And the results? Those average revenues for Black women owned businesses rose by that impressive 32.7% I mentioned earlier. These firms outpaced market growth while driving employment gains in their communities. From 2019 to 2023, the number of firms owned by women grew at nearly double the rate of men's firms as these collective strategies took root. This wasn't accidental, it was intentional community building that accelerated both personal success and broader industry transformation. It was a recognition that in a system not built for you, sometimes you have to build your own system. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds inspiring, but what about the very real challenges Black women entrepreneurs face? And you'd be right to ask. The barriers are significant and well documented. This brings me to the second key insight from Shansonique Williams. Innovation through adversity isn't just a survival strategy, it's becoming a competitive advantage. Analysis from the National Bureau of Economic Research reveals systemic gender and race gaps at every stage of startup development. Fewer than 10% of all U.S. entrepreneurs are Black. Black Americans start new businesses at a rate 22% lower than whites. Venture capital backed startups run by Black or Hispanic founders account for only about 2.4% of the total. These are sobering statistics, but here's where the story gets interesting and where conventional wisdom gets turned on its head. Despite these structural barriers, including a failure rate among Black owned firms that's approximately 20% higher, the exit rate among female founded VC backed startups was actually higher than their representation suggests, at 19.4%. This shows high impact returns when investments are made. How is this possible? Chansonique's research revealed that female founders, particularly Black women, have developed alternative pathways to success. They've used crowdfunding platforms to bypass traditional gatekeepers. They've leveraged digital tools to reach global markets from local communities. They've built support networks that share resources, knowledge, and opportunities. Since at least the late 90s and early 2000s, these gaps have persisted, but they began narrowing recently due to increased advocacy and networking efforts within marginalized communities themselves. These entrepreneurs didn't wait for external validation or support. They created their own systems of validation and support. They demonstrated viability and profitability, even in underfunded scenarios, through grit, resourcefulness, and community based innovation models. This stands in stark contrast to legacy approaches that rely solely upon institutional gatekeepers, funders, and investors. The impact. These success stories provided data driven proof points that inspired more investment in lending toward diverse founders, helping shift perceptions and behaviors industry wide. This leads me to the third key insight from my conversation with Sean Sinique Williams. Visibility inspires change in ways that policy alone cannot achieve. As more Black women step into leadership roles and share their stories publicly, they inspire a new generation to pursue entrepreneurship with confidence, knowing they're not alone on this path. This visibility creates a powerful feedback loop that accelerates progress. Consider what happened in wellness sectors like holistic health, coaching, and nutrition, which many midlife and senior professional Black women have entered in recent years. The increased use of e commerce and social media platforms enabled rapid scaling even during economic turbulence in the post pandemic years. These entrepreneurs faced limited initial capital and accessibility issues due to age, disability, or geography, which compounded typical race and gender bias in traditional markets and funding sources. But rather than seeing these as insurmountable obstacles, they found creative solutions. They utilize low cost, high reach digital tools like Instagram Live workshops, Etsy shops, and educational webinars, allowing direct client engagement and building brand trust without intermediaries or brick and mortar overheads. Many saw double digit revenue increases over 3 years, despite starting from smaller bases compared with peers using conventional methods. This strategy was driven largely by necessity during COVID era shutdowns, but was sustained and adapted as clients continue to demand flexibility, convenience, and authenticity post pandemic. These entrepreneurs built national and international customer bases previously unattainable via local only marketing and outreach efforts. In doing so, they redefined what scaling looks like in wellness and business coaching spaces while creating blueprints others could follow regardless of background, location, or resources available. Now, I want to pause here and acknowledge something important. When we talk about Black women entrepreneurs succeeding despite obstacles, there's a risk of reinforcing a troubling narrative that extraordinary effort should be required to overcome systemic barriers. That's not the point Shansonique Williams was making, and it's not the message I want to leave you with today. Instead, what these examples reveal is something much more profound. By building ecosystems of support rather than relying on individual heroics, Black women entrepreneurs are creating a more sustainable, humane, and ultimately more successful model of business growth. And this model has implications far beyond any single demographic group. Think about it. What if the future of business isn't about cutthroat competition, but about collaborative networks? What if success isn't measured just by individual wealth creation, but by community impact? What if the most innovative business practices aren't coming from Silicon Valley venture capitalists, but from entrepreneurs who have had to reimagine success from the ground up? These aren't just feel good questions. They point to a fundamental shift in how we might understand entrepreneurship in the 21st century. The traditional model of entrepreneurship, the lone genius with a brilliant idea who attracts venture capital and scales rapidly, works for some, but it leaves many behind. It's a model built on assumptions about access, privilege, and resources that simply don't apply to large segments of our population. What Shansonique Williams and the entrepreneurs she studies have shown is that there are other paths to success, paths that involve building communities alongside companies, paths that leverage digital tools to overcome geographic limitations, paths that turn supposed disadvantages into sources of innovation. And here's what's truly remarkable: these alternative paths aren't just creating modest success, they're generating impressive results by standard business metrics. Remember that 32.7% revenue increase? That's not charity, that's good business. So I stand before you today with a challenge to fundamentally rethink how we understand entrepreneurship, success, and innovation. If you're an investor, I challenge you to look beyond traditional patterns and recognize the untapped potential in entrepreneurs who don't fit the conventional mold. If you're an entrepreneur, I challenge you to consider how building community might be as important to your success as building your product. If you're a policymaker, I challenge you to create structures that support ecosystem development, not just individual business growth. And if you're simply someone who cares about creating a more equitable and innovative economy, I challenge you to amplify the stories of entrepreneurs who are creating new models of success. Because what Shansonique Williams has shown us is that the future of entrepreneurship isn't just about who gets funded or who succeeds, it's about how we define success itself. And by embracing the ecosystem effect, we can create a future where success is not just possible for the few, but accessible to the many. The revolution in entrepreneurship isn't coming, it's already here. The question is, are you ready to be part of it? Thank you.